I think The Daily Show with Jon Stewart has met its match. Late Night with the Devil. Basically, the actor with the long name who always plays support characters like the henchman that Batman threatens in The Dark Knight. No, actually, Batman didn't threaten him. Harvey Dent threatened him in The Dark Knight, and who went on to become one of Ant-Man's support crew. He's always playing support characters, but this time he gets his time to shine. He's very convincing as a tired but still gung-ho late-night talk show host who wants just this one little thing to get him to finally beat Carson. This film is done in the 70s. Like I said, to beat Carson and finally make it to the top. All he's sacrificed, all he's gone through, he just needs that one good shot. Enter a teenage girl, played very well by a very talented young actress from Australia, but who seems to have an Italian last name. She's basically our Linda Blair stand-in. She's kind of almost like she's constantly being hypnotized to exude a childlike innocence. She's in her early to mid-teens, but she seems much younger. But there's a sinister side to her. When she looks at you and smiles, you feel wrong. Like, it's not a young girl smiling at you, it's something sinister. So she's both frightening in a subtle way and at the same time worthy of pity. You can't help but feel sorry for what she's gone through. Both characters work well off each other and with the audience. The host's character always seems like he's just running lines and with no emotion in them. You can see it in his eyes. Like the spark is gone, but he's still going through the motions quite disturbingly in a good way. And the little girl, when she looks at the camera, you have to expect something to happen right then and there. So when something does happen, it's on. Also, we have a hokey psychic, a magician turned skeptic, and the girl's caregiver, who's been trying to unlock the secrets of this demon that's possessing her. And they all get their time to shine. There are so many practical effects and camera tricks that really make you feel like you're watching something from the 70s. It's even slightly blurry like old-timey cameras were back then. It's not crystal clear, but it's not supposed to be crystal clear. It's supposed to be something that you'd watch on an old CRT TV. Those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, that's cathode ray tube. A sort of bubble in a box. That's what TVs were back then. No flat screens for us. Anyway, basically it starts off as a bit of a psychic showmanship, a bit of stand-up comedy, mainly at the expense of the sidekick of the host, who also does very well as the poor put-upon plebe. Then we meet the uh, skeptic, and he is very, very sure of himself, very arrogant, almost to the point where you want to slap him, even though he's right. Well, up until the end of the film, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. Then we meet our young heroine and her caregiver, and you can see that while the caregiver wants to come off as caring, we know she's desperate to get the fame that would be attached to proving once and for all that demonic activity exists. Funny enough, there is one quote from The Exorcist here. I'm not going to spoil it, but it's there. And yet there are no actual priests that show up. It's just the caregiver and the girl. As for the girl, her story is fairly interesting. I'm not going to spoil it, but I will say this. It sort of reminds me of what happened at the last exorcism to a degree. Now, if you've seen this film, you know what I'm talking about. Actually, it's closer to the last exorcism 2. But anyway, so what happens is they do some interviewing and they try to talk with the demon, and that sort of things go really, really pear-shaped. And the reactions of both the audience, there's an actual audience, and the various characters is very compelling. It's as if the cast, the actual cast, didn't know what some of the characters were going to do until they did it. But they were able to hold their composure because they knew it was fake, so they weren't in any real danger. But what I especially liked was the prologue, which is a very compelling story in and of itself, and the backstage stuff, where we see little bits and pieces of various characters' true colors. The sidekick is religious. The host is gung-ho about getting his way. The agent is... There's also an agent who's working with the host, who is happy that all this is going on, and he's waiting for tons of cash to come rolling in from the executives. And in the end, well, let's just say, in the end, the true winners and losers are the audience. Because we win because we were entertained, but we lose because, spoiler, you'll have to see it for yourself. Right now it's in theaters, but it's going to come to Shudder, so those of you who get that particular streaming service will enjoy it, because the acting, the sets, the effects, the trickery to make it look like you're watching really big TV even though you're watching a theater screen, they all come together to make for a pretty decent, low-key exorcism film, which may not come close to the likes of the Exorcist trilogy, well, the original first 3 movies. It's various extra films, or stuff like The Exorcism of Emily Rose, or Last Exorcism, or its sequel, or the stuff that's been coming out recently. But it's at least decent enough for a Halloween party, or a pseudo Halloween party that you want to throw in the at the beginning of spring because you're not ready for it to be spring yet. So yeah, check it out in the theaters. Go for a matinee. Well, assuming you can get a matinee. I had to go later. Or wait for it to come out on Shudder. Either way, it's not the worst 92 minutes when it comes to low-key, over-the-top, under-the-radar horror flicks. I'd say it's about the same level as Talk to Me in terms of decent viewing. This is Mr. J signing out and reminding you, if something weird's going on with your TV during a late night talk show, just turn it off and turn in. Nothing good happens late at night, especially when some moron decides to perform an exorcism or summon a demon on live camera. The camera never lies, but sometimes the picture can go both ways. And we all know what happens when demons start coming out of the TV. Isn't that right, Carol Ann? That's a little movie reference right there. Cheers.